Welcome in, everyone. We have made it to the closers. Session 8 of 8 is one of our best, and we're very thankful to have both Brendan McInerney and Mike Crawford here. And they really, I will say, gentlemen, when we have brands to shows, a lot of times the brand folks will hide out until they show up on stage, but you guys have been active and involved, and we really thank you for that. Wonderful attendees. Meet more wonderful attendees. The folks who come to the last session are among my favorite attendees. So thank you all for being here. PDMI West 2025, as we wrap it up, I'm Tom Hare, the Chief Content Officer of the Performance Marketing Institute. Again, we thank you all for coming. We thank all of our sponsors. And in the education sessions, of course, we thank our sponsor, Blue Water, one last time for their efforts. Thank you. And we have one last video for them to share with us.
At Tommy John, a lot goes into our underwear before you do.
But now I've found my bubbly side with SodaStream.
Philips Air Fryer is the original and the very best.
So they may or may not be at table 4 after this. We'll see. Okay, all right. So thanks again, Blue Water, for being our education sponsor. I believe is the 3rd consecutive show, so that's tremendous. We really appreciate it. Finding the right agency and ad tech partners is our topic today. We're here to listen to a couple of great performance brand marketers talk about what they're looking for from their partners. And our host is our host with the most, Chris Foster of Modern Postcard, Vice President of Modern Postcard, is Vice President of Sales for Modern Postcard, is one of his hats. He's the head of our Brand Response Council at the PDMI. He is the host of our Take 20 webinar series, which airs 24 to 26 times a year, every other Wednesday. And he is also the host of Menfolk Journeys, a podcast that you can download or access on all of your favorite podcast areas. Don't listen to my episode, but listen to the rest of them. And Chris is going to take you from here. So thanks, Chris.
All right. Thank you. Last panel of the show. Appreciate it. First, I'd like to do a quick toast to you, our guests. Thank you for being here for the last panel. And a quick toast to Tom and John and the team, and Jessica, Monica, the team at PDMI for putting together such a wonderful and valuable experience for the entire ecosystem. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Well done. All right, so today we are going to talk about choosing MarTech, ad tech, and choosing the right agencies, and the conversations that go on under the hood, behind the scenes, and in the whiteboard meeting rooms about how we go about doing these things. So I want to do a little bit of a table set first, and then I want to introduce our fantastic guests. The marketing technology landscape. So MarTech had put together this on an annual basis and kind of cataloging all the ad tech that's been out there, starting from 2011. 2011 is about 150 ad tech, MarTech companies. 2019, 7,000. Wow, right? That's pretty significant. But check this out. This is 2020, or 2020, I should say. Now they moved it almost into like a world, right, with different lands and different landscapes. All these buckets of different types of ad tech and MarTech. But then it got so bad, and now in 2024 it's massive, right? It is overwhelming. But wait, there's more, and now it's a website, and you can search for various kinds of ad tech or MarTech out there, and truly, but wait, there's more. It just goes on, and it goes on, and there are just so many kinds of MarTech and ad tech. And so it's gotten to the place where it's not a question of if I can find something. It's really a question of how do I choose something, right? What is the criteria that I use? What does my business need? What can my staff handle in terms of transitions? So that's just the ad tech, MarTech to get through your everyday. Now there's also agencies. that you're going to choose from? How can they help you grow? So I have a question, and there's no cheating, so don't ask Mrs. Google on your phone right now. How many digital marketing, media, and direct response agencies are there in the United States? How many? Give me a number. 2,000. What, who else? 500,000. Probably between 2,000 and 500,000. Somewhere in between. Anyone want to guess in the middle? 3,000. It's actually 20,000. That is just the United States. That's just the U.S. 20,000 kind of advertising type agencies, including direct response, digital, et cetera. That's a lot to choose from. And so now we've got marketers who, I'm going to go back to show these handsome fellas. Here we go. So now the question is how we actually choose not just the ad tech, but also these agencies. And I'd love to introduce my fantastic panelists, Brendan McInerney and Mike Crawford. Brendan, let's start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Cool. Well, thank you for having me. Thanks for being on the panel. This has been a great experience so far. My name is Brendan McInerney. I'm the Associate Director of Marketing and Analytics over at Grand Canyon Education. We work primarily for Grand Canyon University, but as well as our Orbis partners, which Michael's actually one of our partners that we're working closely with. Since my time at Grand Canyon Education, I've managed over 30 plus different agency and vendor relationships, maintaining that portfolio of vendors over the last several years.
Fantastic. Mike.
Hey everybody, Mike Crawford, Senior Director of Marketing and Communications at Bouvé College of Health Sciences at Northeastern University. Quick raise of hands, how many people here have heard of Northeastern University? All right, that's what I like to see. Almost every hand. By the end, everyone will have heard of it. We're a global campus, 14 campuses across the globe. I am part of 9 college ecosystem, and I predominantly oversee the health sciences and life sciences marketing. We have 4 schools, 7 departments, over 50 different programs, 4,000 undergrad and graduate, PhD, and doctoral students, 40,000 alum, and that's just at Bouvé. Once you expand that across the entire Northeastern ecosystem, you're talking in the hundreds of thousands of alum. My role, as I mentioned, is really focused on primary factors include enrollment for graduate, enrollment for PhD and doctorate, and also other factors. Target audiences that include our alumni, donors, advancement, prospects, and following them all the way through to extend the customer lifetime value with continuing education and lifelong learning. I did a quick look in the back, and as Brenda mentioned, and we'll get into it a little bit during the panel, we are partners with Orbis, with one of our programs. I think in my MarTech stack right now, by the way, that screen, that looks like my emoji option. Like if you go through your phone, it just scrolls. I'm like, oh, I'm going to choose Adobe. So yeah, we have, even at Northeastern's, at Bouvé alone, it's 13 different platforms we're using depending on the need. And I was just making a list and trying to manage those in the bandwidth with my team.
So, Mike, I want to start with you then. In terms of the big choices that you make when it comes to what your team can handle, because anytime you onboard software or MarTech, your team has to do some type of work. What kind of criteria do you think about? Is it time saving versus the cost of the platform? Is it the skill set of your team? What's some of the calculus that you go through when you make these decisions?
There's multiple factors at play. One of them has to be cost saving, so an ROI or ROMI. What kind of what are we looking at there from a marketing standpoint? We have an agile team, and there's the core function at Bouvé Marketing. There's 3 of us, plus we're supported by work studies, student workers, co-ops.
So if you got 3 full-time employees, how many intern-ish helpers do you have on side of that?
It fluctuates by the semester. So right now we have 4 work studies and student workers. I've had as many as 5, 6, 7. I've also had as little as 1 or 2. Not to bore you with the details, but when it comes to work study, it's a separate award. Student workers are employees and staff. Co-op, and if you're unfamiliar, co-op is one of the driving differentiators in Northeastern University. It's a 6-month paid position, oftentimes predominantly in the industry in which you're hoping to go into after graduation. So we'll have marketing co-ops or communication co-ops.
That's great.
So that's the support staff that we have. So, but to answer your question, we have to look at factors. Do we have the bandwidth to support it? Because there's no point in bringing on an agency, any type of new tech, if it's just going to sit there and collect dust, and I just sign the invoice once a year and we don't use it. We had some, when I started about 5.5 years ago, there was some, I would call them legacy platforms that were adopted that I had to then go through, triage, see if they still provided value from a multiple standpoint, and then some we kept and some we separated with. So I look at that, then what can my team handle while also managing their day-to-day functions?
Sure, because not only do they have to do their day-to-day work, but whenever you onboard a new ad tech, there's now an additional training work
Yes.
that they have to do on
Yep.
top of their daily work. So Brendan, you actually went through a recent experience
Yes.
of onboarding some MarTech.
Yes.
How did that go?
It's going. It's going. So we started a year ago. Expected it to last 3 months. I underestimated the amount of bureaucracy that goes into these decisions. Yes, we were putting our best foot forward with selecting a vendor. The one that we're shifting away from, we just felt like they weren't innovating over time, and then it just got to a point where with the adoption of AI and trying to get more information out of our data, we needed to find a different solution for that. And so we started the vetting process. We started with 3 vendors. We started with a larger set, but we quickly drilled it down to 3 vendors by looking at them, because as you were showing with these slides, there's a lot out there, and we can be pretty quick with like weeding out the ones that are non-starters, but we spend a little bit more time with the ones that we feel like could actually last. And so we drilled that list down to 3. And the first stage of it was getting the background check with IT security and working with our master web developer, making sure it would fit with all our processes, fitting across our CRM ecosystem. And that took time. And then once it came time to do the onboarding, that's when legal and procurement got involved. And so we had to add in some more time and months to work through those legal conversations. And we just started the onboarding, official onboarding, back in May. And we are looking to complete that this month, actually. This is our last month. We were supposed to be finished last month, but we added another month just to make sure the leads will go through properly. Because it's not just how we're tracking these leads to see how are we performing, but we're ingesting this data back into our ad platforms. And so if there's anything that's like off with this data, now our ad targeting is going to be off. And that could take months to figure out where it went wrong. And it could be just with the incorrect data that's being used to inform those decisions. So it's something we're trying to go fast in, but it's taking a lot longer than I wanted it to.
Sure. So, I mean, even you started earlier in the year in terms of the vetting process, made a decision in May. If my math is right, that's 6 months ago in terms of actually onboarding and implementation.
Yep.
So in that 6 months, how has it impacted the day-to-day activity of your team?
So yeah, it takes away resources. We were going through a website redesign at that time too. So with our master developer, it's like, hey, redesign the website, also collect the data for measurement. And so it's working with people that are well above me and trying to figure out their schedules and when they could be working on these processes, while also moving the entirety of the business forward. Even though we want to focus on one task, we can't let everything else just like suffer. So we still need to move forward. And now we're deeper in the trenches. We're pulling in more team members for the training, but it takes time for them as well. Some team members, like I have a colleague here, Isaac, who's been in it since the beginning. There's other team members that are going to be starting like a smaller training set. Isaac was in the larger training set, where during that period, we've learned that there's just certain features of this platform that do not support our reporting needs. So we had to create stuff outside of it, which now creates more confusion for the team members getting trained on it, because we are now training on something that does not exist. This is a theory of something that we will create that will work well with this platform. But it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to do that and to alleviate confusion. And we are now at the point where we have alleviated the majority of confusion, and we are 2 weeks out from official launch.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope that goes well. I won't say congratulations yet, because 2 weeks.
Yeah.
4
Wait
weeks,
until it's
etc.
time.
We know that. So I guess one question that I would ask Mike, I'll ask you this, with your balancing of the various ad techs and a decision. Are you primary decision maker to say yes on a specific platform? Is it a team environment? Do you delegate that? How do you go through that?
I hate to use this answer again, but it depends. But first of all, I too am a recovering website relauncher. By the launch of our website in 2023, also born out of having to bring on 2 other agencies, because we uncovered a definite need to restructure and redefine our brand. while going through it and while also trying to measure the data that's coming through. We also brought on a video platform with our prior CRM, which when we migrated to a new one, it turns out they weren't going to play nicely. So we're in developing like an API to get those leads from the soft forms built into the turnstile to go into the platform. So to answer your question, it depends on where we need it. So at the college level, myself and the ADAF will make decisions. We bring the team in because we don't work in isolation, so I won't just tell my team this is what we're using. We bring them in, we look at our needs. During our quarterly meetings in Marcom, like we start to identify where our gaps are and where we'd see those improvements. From a larger standpoint, if we're talking about university level, then there's separate teams that get involved. But stakeholders for website redevelopment, for video content creation, other needs. We do have, like ITS, OGC, so we do bring in other stakeholders so that everyone's aware and on board. One of my goals is to completely de-silo as much as I can.
Sure.
Because a lot of things happen in a silo, and sometimes it's just the nature. The unfortunate downside to having stakeholders is that it creates a 12-month campaign, which should have been maybe 6 weeks, and not including any sandboxing you're doing with the
Because other
platform.
people have opinions? Is that?
Yeah, I know, yeah. And, or like, and then someone new may start, like, we can't do any of this. And, that's why, because of that, oftentimes you'll say, well, no, I just need to do this tomorrow. And I'm sure we've all been there, where instead of waiting to find out what the appropriate is, what's appropriate for you works then. And you just compound that, and then you have to go back and whittle it, because then you also get frustrated if people leave you out of a conversation that you're supposed to be part of.
So question in your role,
Yeah.
do you think it's your responsibility, maybe even more so than definitive decision-making, to kind of guide and create a narrative or a North Star or the goal, and you're the storyteller of what you want to accomplish, and then your team helps you accomplish that?
Yes, it definitely. One thing we're really great at in my department is storytelling. Whether it's visual, written, multimedia, we really know how to position Bouvé, and as we're redefining what's possible of health, and we pivot that to internal messaging, internal comms. So if we see a gap where we need to get filled, we build that story, we funnel it up, we get buy-in from leadership, we'll get buy-in from central leadership as well too, and we identify need, because most needs come with a cost. And if you didn't budget for it 6 months ago, then it's coming out of somewhere else on your budget that you may have already had planned. So you have to, support that. So that's where we go back to, the return on marketing investment.
Sure.
And how that matters for I'm speaking specifically about enrollment at that point. When it comes to advancement and other target audiences, it's slightly different.
Right. So Brandon, I would imagine for you, because Grand Canyon Education is a pretty large institution, right? You've got a lot of things going on. Do you find yourself as acting as a role of translator to kind of the upper management and executives down to your team to kind of make sure that everyone is speaking to each other in the same language?
Yes, yeah. Definitely playing more of a translator role. I put more empowerment on our team to make some of these decisions. If I'm in the weeds making these decisions, we're going too slow. By the time I get to them, we missed the opportunity a week ago, and now there's only so much time left. So I spend more time just focusing on communicating the overall messaging of where we're going as a company, where we want to drive more demand for our programs. And I work closely with our team to actually go find the media partners who can fulfill those needs. We work with a series of partners, some that are full model, and then some that are just very niche at specific areas, such as nursing, where we work with a few nursing vendors, where I'll have certain team members who are just more well-versed within the nursing vertical and focus on those relationships.
Well, that makes sense. That's great. All right, so that's kind of Act 1 of the panel discussion was the Ad Tech, MarTech. Act 2 is the agency landscapes and some of the options. Said there are 20,000 agencies. There's kind of some ideas where it's one agency to rule them all, right? A multifaceted agency that can take care of everything from your social, PPC to content to direct mail to CTV, et cetera. There's some that you want specific niche, just like you talked about. So, Brendan, I'd like to start with you because you're the only professional I know who's had to manage 30 agencies. You remind me of, does anyone remember Cat in the Hat? He's on a ball and it's got an umbrella and this fish bowl and the cake.
Yeah.
That's you, right? Managing 30 agencies. It's goofy to ask you to tell us about that experience, but I guess what I would ask you is, what is the benefit and then what's the detriment or the cost of managing so many agencies?
Time on both ends. From full-time, you have the full picture. They're looking at your overarching strategy. They're seeing there's opportunities like, hey, paid search, demand's low right now. We can keep pushing it, but your cost per lead's going to go through the roof. You're not going to see the return. However, you have Facebook that's under-delivering. How about we shift these dollars out of Google and into Facebook? They're better equipped to make those overarching decisions. Or when we're working with our vendors that are more like in a niche vacuum, we can't really have those conversations with them, which is okay because we select those relationships specifically for their niche subject matter expertise. We have some vendors where they control the majority of our media mix. They are what I consider like an agency of record. I consider them a partner. Okay. Then we have other people that we work with where it's really just a transactional relationship. We work with a vendor that just drives doctoral leads for us. It's very small volume, but they're consistently doing it. I don't talk to him very much ever. We just have a regroup once a year, and he keeps sending me what I need in that specific area. Where he is at risk is the lack of innovation. So like we've been fine with doctoral, but at one point if we decide, hey, we have doctoral leads coming from another vendor that's decided to expand and take over more, I'm more likely to want to try to shift it because that means I'm now having one call instead of two. I'm not sending out multiple IOs. I'm not dealing with multiple invoicing and all this stuff. Although it might be little during the period time, it's just another thing to have to consider. And I'd rather just consolidate my resources, but also maintaining some niche so I'm not like giving up like that niche expertise through consolidation.
No, that makes sense. And I want to ask you about that discrepancy between partner and vendor. Right. Before I get to that, though, in full transparency, Modern Postcard is actually in both sides of this. We are a vendor, we are a partner, yet we also choose ad tech and choose agencies that we work with. So we want to be chosen, and we're also choosers. And so when we talk about being partners with our clients, we want to make sure that we're completely invested in helping them grow with what we do. You were interesting now just saying that you had a doctoral lead person that you consider more transactional vendor versus folks you really consider partner. How do you, for lack of a better phrase, emotionally make that distinction and that trust factor with someone who would be a partner versus someone that's transactional and vendor?
Yeah, so one part of clarification too, a big side of our business is affiliate leads. We pay per lead for these leads to come through. If you're not familiar with it, for education, it'd be a lot like the nerd wallets. We're trying to be ranked on like, here are the top 3 online programs. And so with those relationships, sometimes it is just very like transactional focus. We want to buy X amount of leads, you have a cost per lead of X or Y, like we get the end result of Z. And with some of these vendor relationships, it is a lot like a vending machine. Here's our money, here's your Coke. It's like, here's our money, here's your lead. And like, that's it. It's like, there's no other like, what are you seeing in the industry? Are you seeing declines in your organic volume ever since all the changes with Google these last couple years? Are you seeing like growth potential going in the next year? Anything new you want to add? A lot of these vendor relationships don't care to share that. When we have meetings with them, it's pretty like order taking, like it's like, hey, we have additional opportunity, do you want it? Versus we have additional opportunity, here's how we've been performing for you, here's where we think we could do better in, this is why you think you should go with us. That's the biggest distinction, I think, between the vendor and the partner relationship, is the partner is showing you like, here's what I'm accountable for, and this is what I'm doing to perform for you, and this is why I feel I deserve more. I need to be a bigger part of your business. Whereas the vendor, they're typically just, they do really well, but they're not as engaged with trying to grow the overall business.
Sure. So Mike, I want to ask you on this, with the trust factor that you as marketer have to have to consider somebody being a partner versus just a vendor. What are the triggers for you to move somebody into that rare heart space of partner?
Talking kind of what Brenda's talking about is like transparency. It's a lot. You're talking about transaction, $1 and $2 comes out. You don't ask how the sausage is made. That's one level. There's other ones like with Orbis. We have regular meetings. We have like in-persons. We have them over in. There's another Brendan that I happen to know. He lives in Indianapolis, so all our stuff's on Zoom. But we have regular, transparent conversations. And we would talk about this a couple of days ago. It's like an agency is a partner when you feel like they have a vested interest in your success, and they're not just taking your check and saying, here you go. In a prior institution, I adopted an agency, and I'm not going to say their name, but like they were just very operational in that manner. They just every week they would talk to the VP of enrollment and be like, here's your lead numbers, here's the stuff, and here's your monthly check. And then once I started scratching into it, it was an absurd number. It was like $20,000 cost per SQL. And it like at that point, when I brought it up to the dean, and he's looking at it, he's like, can you check your numbers again? And I was like, yeah. I was like, we gave him X amount of money, 5, something like students came out, something like that. And like it just wasn't, and then once we started digging into them, that's when we realized we needed to separate from them.
Sure.
And then we moved on to another agency that, which I believe the Institute is still with them, because you did your due diligence, your research, and they were having lunches with us, and we felt like they knew what they were bringing to the table. We had that copacetic relationship, and that's how you transcend that transactional approach and you move it into a relationship approach. And that vested interest, and they show interest. One of the things we were chatting about is finding that partner that wants to meet the audience. They talk about the leads, but have someone come in, sit in a classroom, and meet a student. So they can give me a persona, and they can tell me they're getting these demographics, this region, their interest is, their val segmentations, and they can tell me that's what it is, but they've never, if they sit in the classroom, they can physically see the person that they're trying to get.
Right.
Now that is a relationship.
Sure.
And that person comes in, the trustworthiness goes up to 1,000, and then we stay with them.
Sure. So in any relationship, personal or business, or with agencies, relationship is at least with 2 people, right? You as marketer have a part of that relationship. You're at least half of that relationship. So for the folks here, what is your responsibility as the brand marketer to help that agency be set up for success so that they can be the relationship that they want? What is your job and your role in that relationship?
That's a great question. Baseline, identify their needs to be successful. If they're looking into breaking into new markets, if they have an interesting idea that we want to pursue, but they need some data on trends or new growth with a different program, or you're trying to launch something else, being able to not just stop them and say, I can't get you that data, or let's not look at that, be able to find them that information, willing to take some risks, and be able to support them in the same way that we're expecting them to support us.
Okay.
And it goes back to making sure that, every relationship, whether it's a product to a knowledge brand, it should be a mutually beneficial relationship, so that we're helping them grow as an agency because they're giving us success.
So, and in that too, I like that idea and I like that approach. In also relationships, the way we get better as people is relationships can challenge you, right? Right? So what do you appreciate about agencies that either challenge you rather than just say, yes, I'll give you what you want?
That's great. I want an agency to tell me no at times. Going back to what I was mentioning, like if they're just going to accept a check for the sake of it, if I call them one day, it's like, hey, why don't we get one of those planes with the banner in the back? It'll be great. I was on the beach yesterday. I saw one. Why don't we just slap Northeastern on it, and we'll get dozens of students. Dozens. They're coming out of the woodworks like dozens. I want the agency to be like, Mike, that's an interesting idea. Let's walk it back and let's maybe no. I think your ad dollars could be spent somewhere else. Let's look at what channels are working, or instead of a plane in the sky, maybe we look at introducing TikTok into our social buys. So I want an agency to say no to me.
Yeah. So Brendan, you've got 30 agencies. That's a lot of relationships. I'm sure that they know you have many relationships. I'm sure they're fine with that. But what do you see that you need to do on a day-to-day basis? It's Tuesday, October 14th. It's 2:15 in the afternoon, and you've got to now connect with an agency. what do you think is your job and your responsibility to serve that agency?
We've really spent a lot of time on creating repeatable processes internally and externally, working with our agency partners. I'm not a huge stickler to this. I do let this slide, but I'm a big advocate of agendas. If we're having a meeting with a partner and there's no agenda for that upcoming meeting, I'll typically ask them, or state, here's what we have. It might be nothing. And so if it is nothing, do you have something you'd like to go over? Otherwise, let's reschedule this until there is a time of some substance. Or, hey, we would like to go over this performance. Will you be able to have this by this call? And if not, let's not have a call about how we would like you to do this. Let's have a call about next week when it is available. And then setting expectations that when we do have these meetings, a part of the ever-present agenda is that the partner is coming to us with their performance reporting and some recommendations. It's far too often where we'll hop on a call and there's not anything to discuss. It's really just getting our egos fluffed, which is nice from time to time, but I got a day full of meetings. I need to get through this. And so having the reporting expectation always present knows that when we do have the meeting, there's going to be a lot more substance about it, because if we're always waiting for us to call something out, we go into a meeting with a vendor, the transactional experience anyways, is, hey, we have more lead opportunity for you. Do you want it? Then I ask, in which areas? And then it's in liberal arts. It's well, liberal arts isn't a huge priority for us. Do you have anything else? And now we're starting from there versus starting from where we've already had repeated conversations about what are our priorities, where we would like to be focusing, and where the opportunities for growth are. And just have the conversations from there. It's you told us you want more graduate level programs. We're behind the 8 ball for you right now here, but this is what we're going to do to grow it. But knowing is based off the agenda, each time when we have those meetings, it should be based off of that substance. Otherwise, it's we don't always have to meet.
Sure.
We could just make sure that we're focusing on the work and continue to do good work, but still keeping in our purview, we need to be innovating and growing and providing value back to the client. And I'm coming from a seat too, where I do agency work, where if I'm not creating value for the client, the relationship plateaus, and then you're there until they find something new. But you're trying to constantly create more value and tell that client, hey, you're with me because of this. And you only get so much time to do that. And if you're not doing it during those meetings, and you're not preparing for them, even when I'm teeing you up with an agenda, then it just really sets you back. And as we've seen, there's thousands and thousands of vendors. I'll just move on to the next one. Yeah, sure. Or I'll work with a vendor who is really established, and I'll help them create something. And then over time, sometimes it's hey, I didn't have somebody to replace you, but I built something working with a partner.
Right. So a question then that I have for the two of you is, you come from an agency background before GCE. You've had a ton of media experience before that. So you understand maybe an agency perspective as you start seeking out agencies.
Yes.
A question I'll ask both of you. Mike, we'll start with you. What disqualifies an agency?
What disqualifies an agency? So before I answer that, by the way, this is tangentially related. I don't know if anyone else has seen the stat. Meetings have gone up about 30% post-COVID. So you need to have an agenda.
Yeah.
Imagine walking into a 3-day.
It was a stickler.
Yeah. No, you need to, because nowadays, now that we work at a hybrid schedule, we're not walking from office to office. We're going from Teams to Zoom, and that's it. So now people can book meetings, and it's gone about 30%, probably more depending on where you are. So it's very important to have those agendas. To get back to your answer, though, what turns me off from what
would disqualify an agency?
A lack of interest, for one thing. So I'll give a poignant example. And we relaunched our website in 2023. So of course we have to find a vendor to help us with that. So we put out a scope of work and what we want to a request for proposals, and we got several in. And 2 of them were right off the bat the 2 that we knew that we want to partner with, and we whittled it down. The third one was there, it was on the mark, but it didn't really feel like they listened to us. And the 4th one felt like they just pulled something off the wall and sent it to us. Literally there's typos in it, and typos in Bouvé. When you talk about stickler for agendas, I have one major stickler at my college, and if you'll notice, there's an accent over the E.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult to sometimes get that on your keyboard. But if you're going to submit a proposal to me, like, make sure it's there. That's my big stickler. And they submitted the proposal, didn't have it there. It felt like they didn't want the job. So that's something. Coming into it and just having that passion that they want to work with us, not for us.
I like that distinction. That's an important word.
Yes, 100%.
Brendan, what about you? What disqualifies an agency in your mind?
I agree. I got a long list, and it starts like from, you get the cold emails, and that's where is there a typo in there? It's like,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
on to the next one. This is how I can help your brand? Okay, on to the next one. It's like, you typed in my email, you can type in the company name. The cold calls really grind my gears. I've gotten to the point I shared with you guys before. I will resell you. I will give you. You gotten through to me. You were able to talk to me, but that is now you have 2 minutes to get the entire history down and the relationship established. And I will ask like all the most important questions. I'll ask how the team is structured, what is the tenure of the company, what type of clients you work on, but I'll ask them within those 2 to 5 minutes with that sales representative. And if they don't have quality answers, like it goes into a throw out pile. If that email comes back through months later, like I remember, it's like, it's that company though, like I'm turned off by them. Now, when you kind of make a mistake in an email and you don't really put all your cards on the table to call, like I will, like, okay, maybe the first email wasn't great, but then down the road it's a little bit more polished. You're providing more substance. You called out our school name. You provided a quick one-sheeter of like the changing state of the landscape in education. Like I'm feeling like you're taking the extra step, and now I do want to have a conversation with you. A big thing that we discuss throughout all these series is that, things are just changing so frequently that I'm not like that hard. Like if a vendor makes a mistake, like I don't completely cut them out. Like, but if a vendor does pitch and they don't seem like the right fit, I'll ask you to come back in 6 months or so, knowing it's like, well, that didn't fit our plan today, but in the future this might be viable, or like you're still working on some things and it's not quite there yet. Let me give you some precise feedback and you can work on these changes. And then ideally, like if you can show like, hey, we took your feedback, we made these changes, this is how we're evolving our products to be a better like steward of your business. Like, can we have a conversation? Absolutely. Like, yes, like you've made these changes without even working with me. And so I'm really looking for partners that when they reach out, they're not just saying, hey, you. It's like, hey, Grand Canyon Education, we see that you focus in these areas. Like, we've assisted with education in this capacity, or we don't have much like experience in that specific capacity, but here's similar campaigns that we've managed. But as you can show that proof of work in the initial outreach, it just goes a lot further with me anyways. So.
You're far better than me with that one. My first job out of college was copy editor. So I worked in radio for 10 years prior to higher ed. And my job in promotions copy editing was taking all the one sheets that were that the reps would go out with and go through with a fine-tooth comb and find every typo. Mm-hmm. So ever since then, it's just been in my mind. So it is. It's just like typos. I'm like, you got to be able to scan through. Nowadays with AI, just send it through. Even Google, Microsoft Word. You'll put the red squiggly line underneath it. Like, just go through. But
there's just so much of it, and honestly, like there's a minor fear, like, but just scams. It's like, is this a scam? Like, this had so many typos in it. Like, like, there's no way. Like, I had one that reached out to me. I reached out to what would have been the position previously. They were a rep that I worked with prior. We took a break for respective reasons, and we're trying to get it back going again, and the rep that was reaching out to me was just riddled with typos. So I reached out to my prior contact. I'm like, is this real? Like, does this person work here? Like, because if not, like, you have somebody that's using your name maliciously, or it's like, you might want to get them Grammarly. Like, talk about AI. Like, Grammarly is like the easiest. Like, just download Grammarly.
It's interesting because with AI now, it makes it a lot easier for those intro emails where you can pull down the contact you're reviewing, the person, they get the LinkedIn, what they're doing, and say, AI, write me an introductory email to this person, blah, 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 blah. Personally and professionally, I can smell AI when I when it comes through, right? You can see that it wasn't quite there. How much of a turn off is that for the two of you that are in the seats making these decisions?
AI is definitely a hot topic in a lot of ways. So the way I also teach, and one of the ways I explain with AI is it's a starting point, it's not a finishing point. Think of it as like Cliff Notes or Wikipedia. So when someone just types it in, you're right, the structure of the sentencing is very obvious. Or the use count, if you're looking at the verbs and adjectives, it follows a trend. Even if you give it the appropriate prompts to say, I'm an executive of X, Y, and Z agency. I'm pitching to Northeastern University, global company. I'm trying to get the healthcare business and move them into, ABC. And even after you give them that prompt, you still get something that looks very AI.
Right.
Like, hello, friend. And so you have to go through and give it a human element. So I wouldn't say it's a turnoff. We're becoming a lot more aware of it now. AI is getting better at it also because it's also constantly feeding for what's happening, like depending on which platform you're using, whether it's like, Claude or ChatGPT or one of the many others. So it's not as bad as like typos. But if I see that come through, it just knows that it's, I'd hate to use the term laziness, but they're just copy and pasting.
Right, and I think that goes into it because maybe, one thing that we forget is that each of these communications are so important, and then if we're not in front talking to somebody and it's just coming from email, that has to actually open the door to consideration of, do I want to even have a relationship with this person based on, like you said, laziness, or you said earlier, which I thought was a more important word, was investment, right? They were investment in you. So we're almost at time. I just want one final question for each of you to wrap up quickly, and then we can go to the audience for questions. So Brendan, we'll start with you. Oh, look, she represents an agency. She really wants to work with you. How would you help her out to say, this is what I am looking for to consider you?
I'm dangerously transparent to the point where there was a lot of, probably not as much as Disney probably got coming here, but I had a lot of questions just given how transparent I can get. Where I'll share kind of like what we're doing, where we're running into struggles. I will try to give the lay of the land of my background, and what I'm really hoping for is that you can come in and explain how you can provide value in that context of not like, here's everything I have, not waiting for me to just finish up talking about my wins and losses, but okay, here's what I heard, here's where I think we could create more value for you. And then dive into the proof of like, here's what I've done for similar clients, or here's what this team looks like. And the team aspect is very important to me. Coming from an agency side where I've been brought on to different agencies just to develop the teams, I really focus and prioritize agencies that have a lot of tenure, not just within certain positions, but within like the pods of their teams. I'm very fortunate to be working with a phenomenal agency that not only do they have a lot of tenure working with us, and they also assist with you too, but I've worked with this team myself for 4.5 years, but other members of my department have worked with them for over 10 years. And so when you look at that history book, it's huge. Like there's audits that you'll get through, there's reports that you have a person to go to and they know exactly something changes and they have experience knowing like, here's like, this is a change, here's how we should react to it. And now they're more of a partner in that regard. And so I'll ask about like the tenure of the team are they happy? Have they been there long enough? What are you doing to continue to grow them? Like, what do you do in terms of continued education? Do you attend a lot of events like PDMI where you're continuously trying to become a thought leader versus, getting off of what comes in LinkedIn and stuff from the LinkedIn influencers? So that's a big thing for me is tenure, but also just sharing like, here's what I'm dealing with today. Like, can you explain to me where you can provide value in this mix?
I love it. It's almost like it's a mutual transparency. Like you're going to reveal, be vulnerable. I know it's emotional, but it's a relationship, right? You're going to be vulnerable, sharing what you are, and then hopefully that person can share with them. So Mike, same question to you.
Piggyback on what you said, vulnerability builds relationships. So transparency is key. Was it Seth Godin? All marketers tell stories. So we talk to each other and we build. So when I meet someone like, very much like you said, someone comes up like, hey, meet so-and-so, they want to work with you. You find out what they are, what their background is, what the agency, how can we work together? Once again, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, how can this be a mutually beneficial relationship?
Sure.
And create value for each other? Because that's when we both succeed. Tenure's great. I've had relationships where I've had 3 reps in 6 months, and that shows a red flag. Now, if it's like phase 1 of the project's over and then phase 2 and there's someone else, that's a different situation. But if you get a call and they're like, oh, meet so-and-so left,
Right.
and they do it 3 times in 6 months, that's kind of a flag. But you're right. So if you see someone that's been there for 5, 10 years, that is established there, that's trying to grow it, because that means there's some, not autonomy, but like some consistency with that agency.
Yeah.
I'll talk to everyone, and because there's always an opportunity to work together and improve. I may not have the time in my life to talk to 20,000 people, not on a one-on-one. We would like to, but if you have that relationship and you come up and we talk like how can we be mutually beneficial. I know a lot of people I've talked to over the past 3 days, one of the first questions they asked was, how have you worked with higher ed? Now, that wasn't going to be a turn on or turn off for me, because I've worked with agencies, higher ed was the first client. And you know what? Sometimes that means they're going to work harder.
Yep.
Or they bring a different perspective
Right.
to
100%,
higher ed, right?
100%,
And
yes.
the way I think it's awesome that we have a B2E, 2 higher eds here, because higher ed now, and one of the great brands here is Southern New Hampshire University as well, another higher ed program. They are treating themselves like different types of services, because especially now, the need for transformation for workers is so important, whether they're early, mid, or even late career.
Yep.
We could talk for another hour
Yes.
on that,
Yeah.
but we don't have time because this is the last panel and we've got a happy hour in a bit. So,
Yep.
Thomas, what about questions from the audience?
Audience questions. Jenny, you're tremendous.
So when you're thinking about a new vendor or a partner, where is the first place that you start? Do you go to your main agency to really source that specific relationship or need that you have? Do you go into the pool of all those that have come to you and presented their products? Where do you really start to find those new connections?
I can go first. So with the way I'm structured, I have 2 immediate paths. One, if some of the vendors I met here, they would be managed by my agency partner. I would put that book of business under them where they would oversee it, because it's a lot similar to similar platforms that they're running, and they're going to find some synergies with that. There's others where it's like, oh, I need my team to oversee this one. Depending on which path though it goes through, I'll create the meeting space for us, and I'll pull in either respective team. Sometimes it's very unclear. There's models where, hey, we can do all of it. It's like, okay, I'll bring in everybody and we'll figure out who actually is the owner. But I will start as kind of like the gatekeeper of which path it goes down, based off of what I can gather quickly. We also leverage a third-party service. It's called OmniAngle. And there's a couple others that are similar to it, but it's essentially does our background checks for all vendors. So when we have a new one come our way, we will share their information with them, and then they'll do a check to see. A lot of us can do a lot of the similar stuff with like Facebook ads library and see what types of ads they've ran, but we'll do a background check like, have you been handing out messaging like free laptops, free scholarships, free tuition? If that comes up, then it's an immediate, like, we can't move forward. So our initial process is that it'll hit me or one of my team members. I'll make the decision on which path it goes towards, but while it's going down that path, we do the background checks. Yeah.
For me, it's based on timetable, and it's a mixture of everything. I mentioned I spent a decade working in radio, and we worked very closely with the sales pit. And well, we called it a pit because it was just a circle area in the radio station. Anyone here working radio? It's yeah. Okay, thank you. We're all recovering radio people. You know the feeling. Yes, wonderful room, a lot of activity. But part of the thing they had was consistency. Part of the thing they had was luck. So maybe I need an immediate short-term vendor, and that email comes through, and it was AI generated, but they went through it. They cleaned it up. They put the accent over the E. They called me Mike, not Michael. And so there was a sense of like that relationship building. Or other times, I have a Rolodex. Like, I was just mentioning earlier, like I've collected a great wealth of business cards here. I don't file them away and let them collect dust. I keep them for a reason. because these are resources here. And going back with Brenda said, if I call that person in 6 months and they're not there, that's a flag. Now, if they've been there and they've been there for 5 years, we might move it forward. So it really boils down to the need. If it's a longer term, like with the website relaunch, we took research. We talked to other colleges at Northeastern. We talked to the University Central and how they developed it. We talked to some of our, industry partners and who they've worked with as well too. References go a long way as well, so that's why word of mouth is always a strong one, and references add a huge amount of value. So a lot of factors like that.
I'd say there's a lot of power in references too. It has to do with how many different companies have built up. From what I've seen, there's a company called Quinn Street, and it seems like everybody's from there, from the education side. And what I've noticed is when a new company pops up, it's typically a prominent player from a company that I probably already have a relationship with. And they have a friend that's going to reach out and say, hey, have you considered working with so-and-so? And they will make it to the top. So, and that's just a tough thing to overcome because it's referral based. You need to have a relationship with one of the parties involved, but that is number one, the best way.
It's interesting you say that, Brendan, because I think that's what PDMI offers, is that sense of referral base of, if I'm not the right fit for you, I think I might know an agency or a partner that could be the right fit for you.
Yeah, and it's coming from a conversation with somebody who's actually taking the time to listen and understand. It's like, I can't be successful with you today, but I know somebody who you can be successful with, and then maybe down the road, you'll be ready for me. And then we can be all successful together.
Yeah, and that's fair and honest, and that's transparent, as relationships should be.
Yeah.
It's great.
Anyone else?
I do want to say I have 2 very exclusive Huskies, so if you...
Jenny gets one?
The first 2 people to ask a question get one.
Oh,
So
Jenny
you
gets
get
one.
one. So if there's another question, you get the very exclusive.
I have
There's only 2.
I have a question. Do I
Oh,
count?
here you go. I'll bring it over to you after.
All right. Anyone else?
Oh.
Northeastern Huskies.
Northeastern
Yep,
Huskies.
Northeastern University Huskies.
How about a cheers for these handsome and talented gentlemen?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.